is the sound of your pet being delivered to you. That is the sound of your ping. Your pet is being delivered to you. Ooh. So in this little podcast, welcome to the news, by the way. In this little podcast, what we're going to try to start things off with is a little bit of a concept of making a little bit of like an Uber application with something that connects people with fostering animals, in essence, from those shelters, from the animal shelters, so that in essence you can pick up the application and order an animal, like you're renting something, like renting a car, like you're ordering a car from Carvana, but you're ordering a rental car from Enterprise, for example. So we're combining Carvana and an Uber application and Enterprise at the same time. So 3 different companies for this one application, which is kind of a joke, obviously, but the purpose is to be able to try to promote fostering of animals, fostering of shelter animals, and so they can be delivered to you at the same time. And at the same time as there's accountability connected to something like a rental car, because when you rent a car, there's accountability attached to your name, to your credit card, to all these things, so that ultimately you have to return the property in its same condition, and it's supposed to be conditioned in even better of a process, in better of a circumstance than it began with more gas, the same gas or more gas than it began with. So that is the same quality of treatment that we would hope that the animals are be able to be possible, that it's possible for them to be able to be treated like. In this instance, in this context, in this conceptualization of an Uber application that is relevant for animals to be fostered and delivered to people like rental animals, and also kind of a little bit like Airbnb, where you're able to rent them and book them for certain days of the week and of the year, so that there's this understanding and known conceptualization of how these animals are going to get to you and when and where and what time. And so it also corresponds to people that actually want to adopt these animals after all. And it corresponds perfectly with the people in the animal shelters at the same time. So it gamifies the process of fostering shelter animals, which is not a big enough topic, which is not a well-known enough topic these days. So that everybody, in essence, has the opportunity to rent animals and make it fun. Make the opportunity to get animals into your house for a temporary time a fun encounter, so that, in essence, what you've got at the back end of this encounter, this application, is not only a fun encounter for people to be able to rent animals, but you're also fostering animals at the same time, and it's giving them the ability to free up shelter space so that people do not have to hurt animals and animals do not have to die. For sure, that is a priority in this whole country and in other systems around the world, because Uber is a worldwide process and application at the same time. Yes. So moving down the line, we want to take our vehicles from the Uber mindset and shift it into the nature of every human being as their own vehicle. In essence, their mind is the brain that controls the car. In essence, if it is a car, if it is a vehicle, it is a vehicle, though, at the same time. That's the purpose of Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios, is to be able to reprogram that mindset of what guides the Northstar of those vehicles, those human being driven cars known as bodies, human bodies, to be able to drive those vehicles in the direction of philanthropy energy, to be able to live out philanthropy energy, to be able to pursue philanthropy energy as the North Star, as the pipeline, to be able to have new fuel to also be run on these vehicles, because current day they run on monetary energy. And so we want to transition that into philanthropy energy driven vehicles for all human beings to be driven by philanthropy energy vehicles. And one way to start that activity, one way to conceptualize starting that activity, is to be able to wear the brands that you think could contribute to the most value in the whole world at the present day and time from a little bit of your research, and wear that on a shirt, or maybe symbolize that by getting a shirt that you don't care about out from your closet and writing all of those brands on that shirt, to be able to then be able to have that as a symbol for different people and different demographics that you think could benefit from those companies in the most impactful way possible. You might have to do a little bit of research, and those companies might be something that directly can impact people in a positive fashion. And I'll give you a little bit of an example. One of them in the past has corresponded to people that I've seen, like, sort of walking around with an arch in their back. They lean down forward far on their walkers, and so they have an arch on their back from leaning too far down and having gravity take hold of their backs. So, in many instances, I've walked up to them and told them about something called a smart scoot, which is a 3-wheeled little scooter that, in essence, could benefit their process and hopefully trying to help to give their back a little bit of a break, especially since walkers tend to be too far below people's height. I don't know if it's a cosmetic thing or what, but it tends to make people lean over pretty much typically, and it's a very strange concept. So in essence, what we want to do is be able to try to triangulate the purpose so that in essence it's possible to be able to tell people, as for one example, on this t-shirt, you could write the words smart cart. You could write the word smart cart on my t-shirt, on the Digitex t-shirt. In this instance, because I've told so many people about smart carts, in New York City especially. Smart carts, which are little three-wheeled scooters that are electric scooters that are also super lightweight and designed effectively in this fashion. And a lot of people, even though they've seen them driving around the city, have been edified by this concept of hearing this awareness. But not at the same time. Not only that, but at the same time, that was one of the first campaigns that I ever started talking to people about organically, because I saw so many people leaning over. And so at the same time, after starting to talk to people a little bit at a time about this concept, that ultimately, and getting thanks for just bringing people's awareness to this concept, that in essence, it kind of started also the thing which then, at a later time, had me sort of tumbleweed into other concepts and other items that seem to be able to possibly add value to people's lives if I was passing by them. But these are not my companies. I would just write them on a piece of paper, and I've written it on many pieces of paper for many people across, especially New York City, but other places in the world as well, as I'm passing by them. And so at the same time, if there is this type of a piece of paper that you could have, if you could magically make this piece of paper, which you could absolutely make, because you can get a piece of paper from someplace, and you could write companies that people that you walk by in the street, if you start to notice problems in the world, and you can see companies that solve these problems in the world necessarily, and then you see people firsthand and in real life that have these problems, and then you can walk up to them and actually practice your entrepreneurship practice by retuning your vehicle into a philanthropy energy vehicle. And that is possible to be able to try to retune that vehicle by, in essence, walking up to people and telling them about companies that you've researched and told them about, in essence, that it's possible that these companies can possibly benefit their lives even though you have nothing to gain from it. It's a similar thing, in essence, to somebody dropping a can from their grocery store food cart in the grocery store, and then, in essence, you walk up to them and you tell them that they just dropped a piece of their food from their cart into something of a area that they didn't mean to drop it at, and so you tell them to be a nice person, in essence. And so it's the same thing if you do research on companies that could conceptually benefit people. Somewhat of a good deed like that is something that can be driving philanthropy energy and retuning a vehicle into philanthropy energy. So you can start by writing those things on paper, but at the same time, if you are a vehicle, at the same time you are like a racer and on your racing jacket, and that making that t-shirt is like making a racing jacket. And if you have those little vehicle stickers that you could write on a shirt that is an old shirt that maybe you don't want, and then you could have this brand that is, in essence, these different brands all over your t-shirt that could contribute to different people's well-being in their lives, that you could see that could add value, similar to a smart cart. Or there's something called Cancer Vax, which is a vaccine that supposedly has nanobots in it that can help people that have cancer, in essence, and to be able to try to leverage that kind of a technology, for example, is a more in-depth version and a more in-depth option to be able to try to give people that option of having these options by just telling them in a similar fashion, if they drop something off their food shopping cart in the grocery store, it's a similar courtesy to be able to provide people that courtesy. If you know about something that could benefit their lives, to be able to just tell them and walk up to them and tell them. And at the same time, it helps to develop an entrepreneurship vehicle out of a person, out of a body. You're developing your vehicle. You're honing in on your vehicle. You're honing in on your skills as a philanthropist, as a philanthropy energy developer, as a philanthropy energy producer, as a clean energy producer of philanthropy energy as a human being, by repurposing a focus that is ordinarily focused on a inward self-focus that has to do with self-benefiting, which is corresponding typically to monetary energy fuel that fuels a human being, and transferring that into philanthropy energy as the fuel to fuel that vehicle, in essence, by writing on that t-shirt, on your racer's jacket, on that t-shirt, which can become a racer's jacket, the different brands which you think might be able to help people's lives, because you've seen this problem many, many times in the world, and you could walk around and be able to identify different companies that could be able to benefit different people if they were able to embrace different companies because they knew about these companies, because a lot of people don't necessarily know about these companies. If there's significant problems, like people walking around with their backs arched over, and they can't necessarily do a lot about that because they just don't necessarily know that there's sometimes these resolutions exist, that if you tell them about it, it's similar to someone being able to fix their shopping cart if they drop something on the ground, and you're able to help them out by just telling them about it. It's just something that simple, but then that therefore tunes the vehicle, that tunes your journey, it tunes your mindset, it benefits you and your journey and your mindset, because you're not only doing that, you're not only solving problems for free, but at the same time you're practicing sales in the dark. In essence, it's similar to like this podcast. In essence, we're making cryptic messages all the time by just shouting into the phone, similarly at different times of similar times of the day, to be able to try to make these cryptic messages, which in essence are like little secret messages in the form of singing, because nobody really wants to actually listen to these things. But at the same time, you're tuning, trying to tune for the journey, trying to tune the vehicle for the journey, tune the vehicle, trying to make more philanthropy energy so that, in essence, more philanthropy energy can be continued to be produced. And in essence, your vehicle is continued to be tuned like a philanthropy energy vehicle, which in essence is the best vehicle for making the most money, in essence, in the world, by tuning it to that vehicle setting, in essence, and using that clean energy fuel, in essence, because it tunes out the focus of negative, derogatory other energy, which aligns with monetary energy, which is a toxic focus, typically momentum, development, attention maker. In essence, by focusing on monetary energy, it's a toxic attention maker. In essence. So by focusing on philanthropy energy and focusing on philanthropy processes and tuning your vehicle into a philanthropy energy vehicle, by practicing, by making your racing jacket or your old clothes into racing clothes that are sponsored by these different companies that you could tell people about, and you could just fake yourself out by writing these companies onto your jacket, by then therefore knowing that you're a racer who's sponsored by these companies, not necessarily, but it's your emitting energy that corresponds to the energy that's emitted by these companies, in essence. And so that therefore makes you a driver, in this essence, in this corresponding sort of mindset to these companies and what the energy is that is trying to solve these sort of problems that are based around philanthropy energy, even though you're not getting necessarily a commission for trying to tell these people about it, but it's telling you yourself how to reprogram yourself into a future focus for success in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of how to sell things, in terms of how to cold approach people on a whim and just randomly try to add value to their life, which is in essence what selling is. So you're actually accidentally teaching yourself sales at the same time by doing this surreptitious activity, which is adding value to people, which is just a courtesy anyways, nonetheless, because it's something that you should do if you know about these things that can add value to people's lives, because you just should anyways, and that's what being fueled by philanthropy energy is all about. It's retuning the vehicle. It's retuning the vehicle, in essence, and rechanging your clothes to be able to reflect those brands, in essence, just to be able to tune yourself into that, and then also leveraging sometimes pieces of paper and writing those things on pieces of paper so that people can remember web addresses, in essence, to be able to add value to their own lives, in essence. So it's similar actually, if you want to tune your vehicle further, a little bit further, to the concept of philanthropy energy. It's similar to like a sport. It's similar to a sport. That's why we're called Dinky Tech and Change for Games. That's why we're called Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios, because dogs, they'll play, and they'll just play, but they don't get paid money, in essence, and that's similar to what you can do if you can align with a business that you want to play for free. It's about giving. So you're giving to people by, in essence, like, if you're not worried about money, you're not focused on money, you're focused on like playing the game, in essence, playing that specific game which caters to your snowflake personality and the journey that vehicle is traveling, in essence, which corresponds to the nature of a symbolic monetary reward at the back end of that. But realistically, it's all about the journey, and you're not keeping track of the score, because you can't keep track of any score until you complete the loop anyways, which means you have to climb many mountains. You have to go up and down different frequencies and across different peaks and troughs to be able to try to, in essence, and eventually maybe not connect energy that has to be connected to be able to get a monetary reward. So you have to love that process of going over those peaks, those valleys, those troughs, those cones, to be able to try to get to a destination, in essence. And so you have to be able to love the process enough to be able to sleep outside on the court, on the field of the sport that you're playing, in essence, and not being able to be caring about money, and actually being able to sacrifice everything else in the world because you just love playing that game enough. And actually it's helping to be able to synthesize the philanthropy energy mindset enough so that you just care about giving to people, and not about taking. That means you can give everything away for yourself, and you can sleep on the court of your sport. You can sleep on the court of your sport, and you can care about nothing else, including what other people think about you. You can sleep on the court of your sport, and you can care not about what other people think about you, because you're only there for the game. And so when you're in the middle of the game, you don't care what you look like. You don't care what anything that relates to the cosmetic features of yourself is related to, because you just want to play the game. And playing the game doesn't have to do with vanity metrics, in essence, after all. And so you're just playing the game. You're playing the game. Maybe you'll get money. Maybe you won't, in essence. But if you love the game, if you want to synthesize the game, that's tuning your vehicle to optimize philanthropy energy, because that's about giving. It's not about getting. So maybe you'll get the money, maybe you won't. But after all, if you're just sleeping on the court, if you're playing the game and you're sleeping on the court, it just is all about the game. It's all about the passion. It's just about the dog being able to chase their thing that they're chasing necessarily, and they're not getting paid for it necessarily. But if it was a business, these things that we're referring to are actual businesses that you might want to actually like to do, that we're talking about sleeping on the court of those businesses. There has to be a marketplace at the back end of this court that you're sleeping at, of this sport that you're playing. In essence, there has to be a marketplace. There has to be a demand that you're serving to this marketplace to be able to sleep on that court, to be able to just want to give into this market demand with all of yourself and all of your passion, to be able to sleep on that court, to where ultimately it's about the journey. It's about the journey. It's about the journey. And if you don't complete the journey, and you don't complete the loop, and you don't complete the cycle, and you don't get the monetary reward, you still enjoyed the heck out of playing the game. And the symbology of money is just the actual journey anyways, which realistically you wouldn't have traded for the money anyways, because the journey in of itself is so unique and peculiar that everybody needs to be able to go on that journey and take the journey based upon and guided by philanthropy energy, guided by the focus of the guys of philanthropy energy as the guide of the navigation system on the dashboard, as you continue to make your clothes from different sponsorship processes that are able to guide your process as you continue in a short-term sense to be able to continue to talk to people on a consistent in real life basis, to be able to practice sales. You're practicing sales by giving value and tuning yourself into philanthropy energy. Whoa, tuning yourself into philanthropy energy by continuous giving. Oh. So we're trying to make these little cryptic, weird messages at the same time where not everybody necessarily, we're not able to distribute these podcasts necessarily significantly because it's kind of cryptic to be able to sing like this and have people probably listen for like 15 seconds and then hang up on this podcast almost all the time. But we're cryptically trying to build and teach ourselves while making these podcasts, teaching ourselves while making this podcast. It's like baking a cake with unknown ingredients necessarily, and you don't necessarily know how it's going to come out until you finish the podcast necessarily. But at the same time, we're trying to run this podcast. We're trying to run all the day-to-day practice in the public eye. And I said, so it's like we're practicing in the public eye, but nobody actually knows about it because it's a little bit cryptic, because we're always singing about things. So it's like teaching yourself while still doing content. In essence, that's what edutainment is all about. That's what edutainment brands are all about. It's trying to teach and add value and continue to give and give and be fueled by philanthropy energy, in essence. And it's not about actually getting monetary reward, although that's the game plan, that's the purpose, that's the hope, that's the intention, if you will. But it's got to be geared out that way so that you don't necessarily ever need that necessarily, because you just are trying to give because you have a passion enough to want to give into that industry where that problem exists to begin with. And that's the only reason fundamentally to want to try to start to do that to begin with. But there is always the potential to get that monetary reward, especially if there's enough demand in the marketplace, in essence. But realistically, the giving is much more than valuable and rewarding than the receiving. After all, whoa. Thanks again, Digitech. Bye, peace, bye. Digitech, Change for Games, Digitech. Change for Games Studios. Bye, peace, bye. Also, foreshadowing the next little episode, we're going to try to do loops that are created from infinite marketing agency partnership testing by continuously making loops with marketing testing of outside white label marketing agencies, and try to scale that process conceptually by having consistent, consecutive, scalable, hopefully, marketing agency testing processes where we're trying to make loops with them with my white label marketing agency scale. That process is an ambitious concept for maybe the next podcast. We'll see how it goes. All right, bye.